Hello and welcome back to Suspended Fanimation. I am your host, Dennis Patholkas, and this is Doom Patrol, Season 1, Episode 3, Puppet Patrol. And welcome to Fucktopia. No, wait a minute, that's Fucktopia. Is that right? I'm always confused by that one. So, yeah, another good episode, and this is what Titans should have been, quite honestly. This really is really what Titans should have been all along, honestly. If they had started off with this, I don't think people would have been so down on DC Universe because Titans was just a big ball of crap. That's all I can say. And again, it goes back to Akiva Goldsman on that. Akiva Goldsman's fucking horrible writing. Yeah, it's atrocious, Viking bitch. I'll tell you right now. It's it's not fun. And that was the whole thing. This is actually fun, but still has a good storyline. The villain in Titans, isn't really there until the last couple episodes, and it's just a weird amalgam of shit. I don't know how else to present it. Yeah, it was just really, really bad. But this is the exact opposite of that. Excuse me. And before I start here, I'm going to say, spoiler alert, I am going to spoil the episode. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. Come on back. This will be a video. You can comment in the comment section, and you can like, dislike, all that kind of stuff, as you guys have been doing, which is perfectly fine. So, yeah, I am definitely much more interested in these characters. And the thing was, I didn't really like the characters. I liked the episode in Titans that had Doom Patrol in it, but I wasn't really sold on the characters that much. And I think they just did it because they needed Gar to get out of that, Doom mansion. And, this is a lot better. And it's kind of funny. It's all the same cast except for Chief. Chief they recast from Titans. So, all right. Thanks, Filthy News. Yeah. Go and do what you're going to do and then watch later. So let's get started here because this is actually pretty damn funny. We have Jane putting up posters all over town for Chief. Basically like missing posters. Have you seen this, man? And I love how the first poster that she's putting it over, it's a missing poster for a hamster named Hannibal Lecter, which I was laughing my ass off. That was pretty funny. And the picture was the hamster with a little party hat on, which was pretty funny. But following her are the entire townsfolk, and they're ripping down her signs as they're following her, and they're yelling at her to get the fuck out of the town, that she's ruined the town, all this kind of stuff. And she's not really hearing them. And then she finally does when one of the guys in the front, like as soon as she hangs up a sign, he rips it off the tree and is yelling at her. And she turns around and she changes personalities. And that personality grabs one of the flyers and staples it to his forehead. And knocks him down, and everyone goes quiet at that point and leaves her alone. In the meantime, Vic is laying in bed there, and he's remembering having this argument with his mom, basically the lab explosion that happened. And he gets pissed because they basically kept him from a game for a grade that he got. And excuse me. And he gets pissed off, says that's bullshit, and he threw a tray inside of a lab, and the explosion happens. And we see him examining the video of that explosion. He actually has Grid, as he calls it. Grid is the cybernetic component there. Call up the video, and he asks if it's been altered in any way after he watches it, and it says no, it's the unadulterated video. We know that's going to be coming up later on, as to something happened in that lab. We know something happened. And I'm pretty sure it's going to tie back to his father, because his father's a little bit on the controlling side. Just a wee bit. Hey, Mufinobi. I know some people are going to come trickling in as I'm doing this. So I am on time, so that's all I can say. I may be 1 or 2 minutes late, but I'm on time for the most part. So Cliff and Rita are searching Chief's things and for clues as to his past and who Mr. Nobody could be. And they end up finding, or Rita ends up finding a picture of the donkey, and it's just the town and the donkey. And as Cliff says, that's that fucking donkey. So yeah, they know it's there. So Rita's face starts to melt again, and she takes off while Vic comes in and he says he wants to call a meeting. And Cliff's like, what? And he goes, well, we need to disseminate information. And I love Cliff going, disseminate? Hey, no, you're not late, Movie for Nobi. And yes, thank you for pimping me out on Twitter. Did you print that out of your ass too, or what? Oh man. Larry, in the meantime, after having his quote unquote talk with his hitchhiker, his entity, wakes up in the rafters, because that is the entity's response to, we need to set some ground rules. And instead of setting some ground rules, it puts him up in the rafters. That's where he wakes up and he's like, really? This is your response? He goes, that's pretty, that's being a dick now at this point. And then he remembers back to 1961 California, when he and his secret boyfriend Johnny are in the back of the pickup truck making out. And the next day he's going to be going out, flying his test rocket. And that, of course, is going to lead to the Mercury mission and all that kind of stuff. And Johnny discusses filing for a discharge and going to go and work in the private sector because they can make a killing there. And he tells Larry to come with him. Larry gets pissed off and says, really? You lay this on me the day before, the night before a big, big event that's going to happen? And Larry says, you know what? Johnny says, we always make this about you. He goes, your family, your career, all this kind of stuff. What about me? And Larry says, well, I've got the most to lose, which is kind of a slap in Johnny's face at this point. And Johnny's like, fuck you, man, I'm leaving. And of course, Larry goes after him and says that, to not to worry, but things will change, kind of thing, which seems to be an MO for Larry, which we'll see later on here. Cyborg, in the meantime, holds the meeting in Chief's dungeon, if you will, or his lab, and tells them who Mr. Nobody is. He's found out, he actually did a little search and found out that Mr. Nobody is actually Mr. Morden, and tells them that they need to go to Paraguay. And he says, don't worry, I can get you there. And he calls up his dad and says, hey, Dad, can I borrow the jet to go to Paraguay? I've got some stuff I need to do. And his dad goes, no, you're leading your own team. He goes, it's time for you to make your own way. Figure out how you're going to get there. And Vic's like, shit, So what does he find? But all he finds is the bus that they have. And Vic's idea is to drive to Paraguay. What the hell? And I love how they go, they pull up, he pulls up, and they're like, is this the bus to the airport, is what Rita says? No, different, change of plans. They're like, what, we're going to drive? That's going to take like a week. He goes, no, it's not going to take a week. It'll take 2 weeks. Yeah, and so we have a little montage of the bus going through different states and them taking turns driving. And of course, Rita drives like a grandma because she's had hold. And of course, Jane looking at the map, obscuring the window as she's driving. It's kind of funny. Cliff was the only one that didn't drive, and he's a race car driver, which I found kind of hilarious. And so somewhere, out in the middle of nowhere close to Paraguay, Larry is driving, and he decides to have a little talk with his entity and to, again, set some ground rules because, you know what, this is my life. You shouldn't be killing me. You're trying to kill me, that kind of thing. What the hell, man? And all of a sudden the entity flies out of him, goes through the bus, hits the engine block a couple of times, knocks out the engine and flies back into him. And of course, everyone's asleep when this is happening. So the bus is rocking back and forth. And they're like, what the hell? What did you do? And he says, this thing is trying to kill me. I think it's been trying to kill me all this time. And of course, Cyborg says the same thing I would. It's like, that would have been good information to have before we let you drive the damn bus. Excuse me. I cannot get rid of this cough that I've got. So you're going to have to bear with me. I'm sorry. Viral pneumonia strikes everyone. Actually, a lot of people at work have been getting it, which is kind of weird and not for me. So they end up pushing the bus, Cyborg and Robot Man, to a motel, which luckily enough has one room left. So they all have to pile into one room. I love also, too, when they're driving down the road, Jane decides that she's going to commit suicide and jump out the window. And she's literally halfway out the window before they grab her and bring her back in. Larry is outside the motel room, and he's sitting in front of the vending machine, and he remembers talking to his wife the night before the crash. And she's not happy with him and what's going on. He still has late nights out with the boys. We kind of have a feeling she knows that he's gay and what's going on. And she says, you know what? He keeps saying, well, things are going to change after this. She goes, well, that's what you said after here. That's what you said after there. And nothing's ever changed. She goes, I think it's time I make a change. And he tells her, no, don't say that. He says, the only thing that's getting me through this is thinking about you and the kids. Yeah, he pulls that old chestnut out and polishes it up and says, yeah, the only thing getting me through this is you and the kids. So you can see he's a manipulative little prick on, well, both his boyfriend and with his wife. And yeah, he lost his two lovers move Finobi way before all of this, and he's kind of blaming the entity on all of this, and that's what we get with Larry. This is pretty much Larry's story for the most part. We get a little bit of Jane's as well, but it's a lot of Larry in this one, which was good. We needed a little bit of this so he can get his powers under control, because he actually has some pretty good powers once he gets into it. So excuse me. Where was I here? So they end up Cliff's outside the hotel room. So that night they all are crashing on the bed and they're watching Night of the Living Dead, which I thought was pretty funny. And they're eating popcorn, watching the movie. And the next day, Cliff is outside and we see him getting ready to call a number that he's got on a little strip of paper, which we know is his daughter. And he stops, and there's a cat that's down below, and he decides to pet the cat. And he goes, oh, I bet you're furry. And he goes back into the room, of course, and Rita's in the bathroom. She's been in the bathroom for 45 minutes. And, of course, Larry needs to go. And she is melting. It's basically one of her legs she can't control at the moment. She doesn't want to get out. She's making all kinds of excuses. And Cyborg is looking for his car keys, which, of course, Cliff is fucking with him because he's got the car keys. Jane comes in, and she's got coffee for everybody. And she tells, Cliff, give him back the keys. And then she tells Rita, if you're not coming out there, she goes, I've got you your hazelnut mocha with vanilla and all this kind of stuff. And she goes, and if you don't get out here in the next 2 minutes, we're going to fucking leave without you. So, of course, Rita is still not getting out of the bathroom at this point. And we see Jane switch personalities over to, excuse me, one that can teleport. And this one is called Flit. Flit actually grabs Robot Man and Negative Man and transports them to Paraguay. Just, there we go. And they're there. And it's pretty damn funny that she could have done this all this time. Well, one of her personalities could have done this all this time. And they're like, well, you could have teleported us all this time. And she goes, yeah, I just got bored. I couldn't deal with this anymore. So I did it. And Jane says, it wasn't me. It's one of my personalities. And she's explaining this. She didn't do it then. Actually, she did already. So I omitted that part. At one point, Larry asked Jane how she keeps all of her people under control, as he put it. And she goes, I don't keep them under control. She goes, they are who they are, and I respect them. And she goes, that's how she deals with it. And she goes, if he wasn't such a controlling asshole, he would realize that as well. And she is not in control of any of them, and doesn't try to control them. You're right, sculpted leather art by Viking Bitch. She is one of the most fascinating characters that we have here. So they end up at a bus stop, and there's a guy that's there whose name is Ring Ding, who's waiting for the bus to get a procedure done. He's waiting to get the Morden done, or he wanted the Morden done, but he couldn't wait. So now he's just going to get magnets put to his feet so he can walk on walls. Yeah, that's kind of interesting here. In the meantime, Cyborg's out trying to fix the van, and he meets a fan who knows who he is and goes, hey, what's Batman like? He goes, I don't know. I've never met him. And the guy's trying to engage Cyborg, and Cyborg's like, you know what, man? I'm just trying to fix the engine. So the guy snaps a selfie with them. I thought that was kind of funny. So the van, the bus shows up, and as Cliff says, oh, for fuck Christ, it finally shows up. Excuse me. And they wind up in Fucktopia is where they end up. Excuse me, Fucktopia. And I love how Jane's reaction is, welcome to Fucktopia. And she goes, excuse me, how do you say that? Fucktopia, not Fucktopia? She goes, spell it. They're like, okay, just let alone. And all the people are dressed up like Bavarian, women and men, little Bavarian kind of outfits. And yes, time for these Germans to enter the stage. And I'm going to get hate mail for that one because I did, yes, a German accent. Look, they're making Von Fuchs to be a Nazi at this point. If you want to send your hate mail, send it to DC at that point. Hey, Stanley. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is at this point. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. It's a caricature of things. Is it right or is it wrong? I'm not here to judge that. I'm just giving you what I watched. All right. So, where was I? Oh yeah, Fucktopia. And they end up going to the introduction that they need to go through, which is a puppet show. And this puppet show is very interesting. It's an introduction to Dr. Dr. Von Fuch, and how they, what he did, and how Mr. Morden is involved, and what he does. He gives people superpowers for money. Exactly. Superpowers, charge it. That's exactly it. In the meantime, Cyborg and Rita, Cyborg comes out to where Rita is sitting by the pool, and he's like, do you mind helping a little bit? And she goes, what exactly do you want me to do? I don't have any of those skills. And he says, you've been sitting on your ass all this time. And he goes, you're chicken shit, is what he tells her. You've been chicken shit all this time. I really don't think you want to help find the chief. And she kind of turns it around on him and tells him that he's the one that's actually chicken shit, that doesn't want to confront like his dad and, this whole Justice League thing and things like that. And so she leaves. They have that confrontation out there. And we go back to the puppet show. And the puppet show tells us that when Mr. Morden was in the chamber turning into Mr. Nobody, that who walks in but the chief. And the chief shot Von Fuch and then shot the device that Mr. Nobody was in, interrupting everything, and then took a satchel. And I'm pretty sure that's going to come back and bite us in the ass, is that satchel's containing something that Mr. Nobody needs. And I think also that the team needs in order to find him. So that satchel is key right there. And I love, after it's over with, after the puppet show is over with there, Cliff says the best thing, let's just shag ass out of here. But, of course, the Bavarian hosts say, are you ready for your procedures? And they opt to have the procedure. And of course, Jane, they separate them out into different rooms. Jane is the one that has all the credit cards, or she has a credit card that tries to get run, is declined. And she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, that was declined. Do you have another form of a way of payment?" And so Jane goes, "Oh, wait a minute." And she reaches into her bag and just pulls out this like pile of credit cards. Says, "Here, try these." And of course, none of them work. And we see that these people are under control because they stop every now and then and they're thinking about something, and they continue talking. And Larry, in the meantime, has gone off wandering on his own. And he finds the chamber down in the transformation chamber and flashes back to being in the hospital just after the crash. And all the hospital staff have collapsed to him he's been emitting radiation and making everyone sick. And these guys in rad suits and Geiger counters come in and tell him, he's emitting radiation and that he needs to, come with them. And they put him in a room, or like a rad proof room. In the meantime, his wife Cheryl decides that this is the best time to break up with him is via a radio and not being able to see him. And says, "I've told the kids that you've gone away and that you're probably not coming back. And I'm leaving you. I hope you find love, and I hope you get better. Thanks. Bye-bye," is what she says to him, which, quite honestly, he brought this shit on himself. Again, we saw that he is not the nicest person, or wasn't the nicest person, and has been wallowing in this shit ever since 1961. All right? A long time ago. So, excuse me there. Jane decides, excuse me. Jane decides to, God, this cough is just going to kill me. Jane decides that what she's going to do, that she's going to trade her blood, because her blood has superpowers, 64 different personalities, and they can find out what they want, for her friends to get the procedure done at this point. Yeah. And they accept. They accept it. In the meantime, Vic is trying to apologize to Rita for what he said earlier, and they both commiserate over Mr. Nobody getting into their heads and fucking with their heads big time. And they have to both admit this at this point, that, yeah, he really did a number on them. And he says, yeah, he goes, "This is over with." He goes, I have to admit, we can't do this. This isn't working. And just then, Vic's dad calls, because he's been listening in all this time, even though Vic's been on private mode, and tells him that the jet's ready and they can go and pick it up at the nearby airport. And it's like, damn, man. Controlling much? His dad is really controlling. He really needs to find a way of going into permanent private mode so his dad can't, listen in on him. So Jane ends up getting led away to go and meet Von Fuch, who is in a box. It looks like he's in a toy box almost. And there's a guy cranking a big handle off on the side that is keeping him alive. And he's got wires coming out of his head, like a big bundle of wires leading into the back of his head. And he tells her that, he wants to see another personality and their ability before he accepts the deal. And she tells him that's not the way it works. She goes, they're not here for your amusement, and they don't do what I say. They are basically free will at this point. And he says that's a shame, of course. So Larry, in the meantime, activates the chamber that he's in, and he meets his entity. And he goes, "Well, I guess that's it then. We're separated." He goes, "I'm going to go. You have fun. You go on your journey. Do whatever the hell you're going to do, and I'm out of here." And he goes to leave out the door, and, of course, the entity stops him. And he's like, "What do you want? What the hell do you want?" In the meantime, Fuchs is telling Jane he can remove all the personalities, all her personas, leaving just her alone in that body. And she goes, "Nope, not going to do it." And he goes, "Why?" He goes, "Do you realize that you're not the core personality? Who is the core personality? Is it you, Jane?" is what he says, which is an interesting question. I mean, she's had that many personalities in her. Which one is the real core personality? Or is there a core personality now at this point? Or are they all one and all dependent on each other? Which is a really interesting question. And again, a very interesting character. Oh, man. And she tells him that scientists poking and prodding her what turned her into what she is and all her personalities, and that the person who saved her and got her out of there was actually Dr. Niles Calder. She goes, you know Dr. Niles Calder, don't you? You met him before. And he freaks a little bit, and we see him, stop for a second, and he twitches, and all his little puppets freeze for a moment. And we see the one that is in front of Cliff, the Bavarian girl. She gets up and starts walking out, and Cliff follows her and goes down and down into the, down below where the chambers are, where all these experiments happen, if you will, or the changing happens. And he sees a lot of von Fuchs puppets. And they say to him that a friend of Niles Calder is an enemy of von Fuchs. Von Fuchs is Uber. And I'm like, well, I was going to make an Uber joke about that, but it just already writes itself. I'm just going to leave it there for you. So we have and all of a sudden with Jane as well, we get her von Fuchs puppets coming in. And we get a very gory fight scene where Jane is switching between personalities very rapidly and killing the puppets. Same thing with Cliff. The puppets are attacking him, and he's throwing them against the wall. And finally he goes, you want to fuck with me? You want to fuck with me? And he grabs one of them that's down on the ground, steps on him, and rips his body in half from the legs, using the bottom half of the torso, swinging it and killing people with it. Yeah. It was one of those things. It's like, holy shit. And yes, and then I mean, the other personality that Jane turns into is the girl that whatever she says turns into the words appear in the air like knives, and she can throw them at people. And she goes, die Nazi motherfuckers, and sends them out and kills them all. Yes, this is not for kids at all. Definitely not for kids. Larry, in the meantime, tells the entity it ruined his life. And the entity takes on the form of Johnny and goes, no, you ruined your life. And, he basically confronts him with it. And it's stuff that Larry already knows at this point. He's had, 50 years now to realize this, 60 years to realize this. So, yes, he is definitely, coming to terms with all the shit that he's been pulling all his life. And as Elsa said in Frozen, you got to let it go. Let that shit go is basically what it needs to be. That's what Jane has been doing all along. Yes, I did just reference Frozen. I've never seen the movie, but I know what the song is. There you go. Yes, I am going to get hate mail and, hate comments and whatnot, but hey, what the hell? So Jane ends up killing von Fuchs, and he tells her, basically, he has some parting words for her about, being alone, that kind of thing. The usual villain thing. In the meantime, Cliff is down in the basement. He starts freaking out. He's like, what have I done? What the fuck have I done? Because he sees all the bodies. And then Jane taps him on the shoulder, and he swings around and almost kills her. And she sees what he's done, and she kind of blanches for a second and goes, we need to get the hell out of here. So they go and get Larry out of the chamber, out of the transformation chamber. They open the door and get him out. Nothing has changed on him. And he goes, so what do we do now? Do we search for clues? And Jane turns into that giant with the flaming head and just starts torching the transformation chamber. And Cliff is like, all right, I guess we destroy everything. I knew the cough was coming there, so sorry. They walk back into town. They get back to the bus stop, and they see Rita and Cyborg waiting for them. And I love how Jane rescued the chief puppet. She goes, "We found the chief," and she gives him the Rita, the puppet. And Cyborg says the plane's about a mile that way, so they continue over to the plane. Is where they go. Larry aboard the plane there starts remembering being in the room back in 1961 when Johnny and some of the boys showed up and they're outside. And we find out that Johnny has reenlisted basically for him to stay with him so he can stay in the Air Force, stay near him as he recovers. And Larry basically tells him to he tells him to go. That's what he tells him. He says, "Just go." And Johnny's like, "What? I didn't copy that." And he says, "Just go." And he cuts ties with everybody at this point. So we realize this is something that Larry had to get through in order to accept the entity within him, because the entity is being blocked by him being negative, hence negative man. There you go. But no, that's just a joke. There we go. But yes, he did need to get rid of all that fucking negative energy so that he can work with the entity and they work together. So in the meantime, they're flying back in the jet, and Vic's dad calls him and says, "How did everything go?" And Vic's trying to push him off. He's like, "Everything's good. I'm tired. I got to go, Dad." And his dad says, "Well, if you need anything, I'm here for you." Click, and he hangs up on him. It's like, wow, that's pretty vicious. So afterwards, we see the burning Fuktopia down below there, and we see the door open up, and of course, Ring Ding is down there, and he's like, "Hello, guys. Am I supposed to be in here for this long?" And we see he's got like celery stalk for a hand, and one leg is crystal, and another leg is kind of wooden. And then on his shoulder, this whole side of his body has a velociraptor head with an arm. It's a velociraptor as well. And he's like, "Oh, cool," and starts laughing maniacally. And that's where we end the episode, on just some weird shit. And it's a damn good episode that it was. Yeah, Mufinobi, I don't know. I want to say he looked like it might have been Metamorpho. That might have been their Metamorpho character that they were kind of toying with. I have no idea. Excuse me. Because the way he looked, that guy at the end, Ring Ding, he looked like Metamorpho. He had the 4 different sections, if you will, and colors, and he was almost colored like Metamorpho in a way, but I can't be sure. It was very weird. Yeah, the teaser for next week is crazy as well. I don't know what to make of it, and I'm really kind of, I want to see what's going to happen. I really do. I want the next episode to be now. It's slowly turning into my favorite show. One of my favorite shows, I could say that. It's very Legion-esque, the way. Yes, and I did miss Alan Tudyk this week. We really missed him. He's off. He's very busy. By the way, he's got another series that's starting. Sci-Fi just greenlit the series Resident Alien, which is it's from Dark Horse Comics, about an alien that crashes on Earth here and assumes the guise of a doctor in a small town. And it's kind of a comedy drama, if you will, but Alan Tudyk plays that alien. Yeah. Yeah, this show is really good. And again, it's your cast that you have. I did like that whole thing where they're introducing, this is Jane's like, "This is Tarzan, this is Jane, this is Cheetah." And when she said Tarzan about Cliff, I started laughing because he played George of the Jungle way back in the 90s, if you guys remember. So yeah, Tarzan of a sort, if you will. I thought that was pretty damn funny. Movie Finobi says, "I almost thought that Fuktopia narration was going to morph into Tudyk." I did too. I really did. And I was kind of hoping that he was going to be doing the voiceover, but they didn't. Slurmy Scott says, I watched Legion, enjoyed season 1, totally confused by season 2, another Hulu show. Yeah, it's a little bit confusing. If you go back and watch it again the second time around, it does make sense because it's not linear in a way. But once you go back and watch it again, now that you have everything in your head, it makes sense. It's a really weird show. I can't explain it any more than that. So, great episode again, as usual. Stanley Tweedle says killings in hallways. Yes, there were multiple killings in hallways. People getting their heads smashed into the walls and like blood squirting out, against like a splatter pattern on the walls. People getting ripped in half. This was definitely not a kid's show. And then Jane as well. Flit actually shows up and she teleports on a couple of people and cracks their necks. Excuse me. Didn't mean to do that in the microphone there. And she's stabbing people, slitting their throats, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Avita Zane. Yeah, that was a good one too. And Joe Greer says, I've been hoping Alias appears somewhere on streaming movie. I thought it was on Hulu, but yeah. So Carl Lumbly, a Martian Manhunter voice, was on Supergirl. Oh, interesting. Well, Carl Lumbly was Martian Manhunter's father on Supergirl. He's a great actor, too, by the way. And Mantis. For those of you who haven't seen it, there's an old Fox TV show called Mantis back in the 90s with Carl Lumbly as that character. And it is a superhero show. It's very interesting. Yeah. Movie for Nobody says, if I ever break up with Dennis, it will be in live chat. Aw. That's nice. You just want to see the look on my face, don't you? Where are we here? So, Movie for Nobody says, so they basically only found backstory on the chief, but no clues to his whereabouts, right? Not necessarily. Remember what I said. They found that he took a satchel after he shot Von Fuchs and at Mr. Nobody. They need to go and find that satchel. That satchel's back in Chief's place. So they're going to have to rip the place apart to find that satchel. And I bet you that's where their clue is to find Chief and Mr. Nobody. Mr. Move for Nobody says, is Robot Man's daughter significant in the comic or just fleshing out his character? How old is she now, roughly? Well, considering that he died in the 80s, 90s. Yeah, he died in the 90s, and so she would be in her 30s now at this point. Because she was only like 8. So yeah, she'd be in her 30s. Mantis. Yeah. It was MANTAS. No, IS. Excuse me. MANTIS. There we go. Mantis. Excuse me. Fair enough. Satchel and candy. Yeah. I did like that line too, Movie for Nebby, where they're going through his lab and he goes, and he's obviously a diabetic because they find this drawer full of nothing but Kit Kats and candy and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, Movie for Nobody, if the Robot Man's daughter is significant in the comics or not. I honestly haven't read any of the latest runs. I barely remember the runs from the 90s of Doom Patrol. And it's very, very hazy for me on that stuff. For obvious reasons. I am not going to even touch that one, Movie for Nobody. But I will see you next Tuesday. So with that said, let's take care of a little bit of business. If you like what you see and you like me coughing in your ear, hit the subscribe button. Also, hit that like button if you like what you see, or hit the dislike button if you don't like what you see. People have been doing it. Leave your snarky ass comments down in the comment section. I may or may not delete them. Who knows? I deleted one already. Yes, I have. That's just because the person was an asshole. That's all I'm going to say. What else? That's not how you use that word. I do not think that word means what you think it means. I have a schedule up on my website, suspendedfanimation.com. Also on Facebook. Yes, I still have a Facebook page that has my schedule up there as well. You can also find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram as well. I am Sir Coughs a lot lately. I like big coughs, and I cannot lie. Oh, don't get me started, man, because I will start coughing. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. is Saturday Morning Blast Off. That is the show where I talk about all the genre news of the week and anything else genre you guys want to talk about. It is one of the best chats on YouTube. So come on in, have some fun, and we'll talk nerdy to each other, you know, and geeky as well. I'm an equal opportunity, you know, nerdy geek. Exactly. And there's some good stuff in Saturday Morning Blast Off this week. There's some interesting stuff that's out there. What else do we have here? Oh, if you're still on the fence about joining up, take a look over here at the videos. There's going to be some videos up here near the end of the video that are going to cull from my library based on what you've been watching on YouTube. So it has an algorithm that sees what you like, takes it from my video library, and pops up the best video up there that matches your expectations. If you like that, hit the subscribe button. There's going to be a subscribe button up in this way. Take a look at that there. And like I said, my schedule's up there. Sundays right now I have open. I don't know what I'm doing on Sundays at the moment. I might sleep in. Who knows? Mondays is going to be Future Man. Tuesdays is Project Blue Book. Wednesdays is Deadly Class. Thursdays is Gotham. And Fridays, of course, is Doom Patrol, which you're watching right now. And Saturdays is Saturday Morning Blast Off. So which mug for tomorrow, Joe Greer? I don't know. I watched all of them, so your guess is as good as mine. It's whichever one I grab out of there. It's usually the first one that I grab, you know. I still haven't unfurled the C-3PO one because I really don't like it. It's a C-3PO with the red arm as a, you know, as a handle. And yeah, I'm thinking about just selling that one off because yeah. It's not the C-3PO I know. My C-3PO was just way, way more flaming. That's all I'm going to say. With that said, I'm going to let you guys go. Take a look at the videos up here to hit the subscribe button up there. Oh, yeah. Also, hit the little bell that's down below there if you want a 50-50 chance of knowing when I'm going to be on next live. I don't know if Slurmy Scott actually got the notification this time around. You probably got it about, what, 15 minutes into the thing there. So, yeah. Slurmy Scott says, ouch, I only watch Future Man. The rest I don't have access to. You can watch Gotham, I believe, on Hulu. And Deadly Class, I think just the first episode's up on there. And what else do I have? Project Blue Book, you might be able to watch on Hulu as well. I can't remember. Maybe or maybe not. Or you might be able to watch it on the History Channel app or on their website. I think they do it the next day for free. So the alarm worked for you. Hey, Stanley Tweedle. All right. That's good. I'm glad that actually worked because it's a 50-50 shot. So again, take a look at the videos over here. Hit the subscribe button. I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you to everybody who joined me tonight in the chat. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, you may get ripped in half by Robot Man and be used to beat your friends with. Good night, everybody.